Hey, what's up, studs? Ryan here, or MandRproductions, with a review of a LEGO Star Wars set I have been so excited to build for a long time. This is the 4483 AT-AT from 2003 for ages 14 and up with 1,064 pieces. When it was released back in 2003, it retailed for $100 in the United States, and adjusted for inflation, that's actually about $140 in 2020 money. So it actually compares quite well to the summer 2020 AT-AT as far as price goes, only $20 less. But this is a set that I have wanted since I was very young. I remember seeing it on the shelves of Toys R Us, and it's kind of funny. It was one of those sets where I was young, obviously, so I was much smaller, and I thought the box was huge, right? Like, to me, when I was like 6 or 7 or whenever I saw this on the shelf, this was a ginormous box. And obviously, it's like a normal $100 or what is now like a $200 UCS Star Wars set size box, but to 6-year-old me, this thing was ginormous. The other interesting thing I have to say about this is that this is one of 2 box variants LEGO made for this AT-AT, and quite a few other sets from around the time were subject to this change as well. But basically, in 2003 when it was released, it had a blue box, and then in 2004 they changed it over to this box. So it was kind of an interesting change that they made, and part of the consequence of that change is I suppose they just had so many of these blue style instruction manuals made that they would include the blue style instructions with the newer styled box. So it was kind of an interesting departure from the box art, and you don't see it often where you have a mismatch like that. But as far as the instructions go, they're pretty normal, although they have kind of an interesting blueprint style design or something in the background. I'll also say there are no numbered bags, so this can be a grueling build. It took me about 4 hours. Definitely not the quickest build in the books, but maybe the best part of this is the back end here, where you have some wonderful art from the time showing off the AT-AT. I find it kind of funny that they had to put the set number over every single one of them. I don't really understand that, but still very, very cool image from the time, one that I really, really love. And then there's the back of the manual. Your box will do the typical show off your minifigs, which you get 4 of, some features of the set, and then of course the back side of the box shows off pretty much everything the set can do. Another bit of artwork down here, again showing the set numbers. It would have made more sense to put this piece of artwork on there and then still have the set numbers labeling it, because the Snowspeeder that came out at the time was wonderful and went very well with this set. Also, you can peep some movie scenes on the bottom right of the box, which is kind of neat, something you don't see on the modern Star Wars set boxes. But let's take a look at the minifigs. The Luke Skywalker minifigure is very bare bones. I honestly don't think this is any different than the 1999 version, and my suspicions are well founded because the torso is largely the same. I would say that there's a small extra bit of printing on the center there underneath that like main control chest piece, and obviously the face is a little bit different, like they've got thinner lining. But this is a figure that did not see much change in its first couple of iterations here with the Luke Skywalker pilot minifigure. Definitely no double-sided face, no back printing, no arm printing, and a very bare bones Rebel pilot helmet. Although I actually am very okay with that Rebel pilot helmet from the early years. I actually quite like the way that this one looks. So decent figure for the time. The AT-AT driver was a really, really neat figure for 2003. This was the only set that we saw him in until 2007. He came in the motorized AT-AT, and then again, they basically lost all of their luster in 2010 when they put them in a battle pack. But in the year 2003, this was the only way to get this figure, and it was really, really neat for the time. I think this is very well done. You can see there's a ton more printing detail on the torso and on the helmet than we see with the Luke Skywalker figure, which is quite a bit of a shame. I wish they had done a little bit more for that Luke Skywalker, but this looks really good, especially for 2003. I think they nailed the look. Unfortunately, the yellow head underneath looks a little bit awkward, as you can see it peering through. These are some of my favorite snowtrooper designs. You get 2 in the set, and they look wonderful. I just love how clean and bare bones they look. I think it just works out really well for LEGO. This was the first time we saw the snowtrooper here in 2003, and we saw this design used for about a decade until they redesigned the snowtrooper and gave it a completely different look without the all-in-one backpack with helmet look. But this one did look the part for quite a while, and I still really like the look of it. I don't think it's too outdated looking. You can remove the helmet, and you'll find that there is a black head, like I mentioned, and no face on that or anything, so don't go looking for anything special with these guys. But still, for 2003, really nice figures. Unfortunately, only 4 minifigures leaves a lot to be desired. Perhaps a couple more snowtroopers would have really made this set, or a figure like General Veers, who we did eventually see in the 2007 motorized AT-AT, but still, 4 figures to me, not enough. And this is the finished AT-AT. It is a very large model, very heavily brick built. Like, as I was building it, you can just feel the 2003-ness of it. It just definitely has a lot of building techniques that are so 2003, and that's kind of a fun experience in a way. Now, where it's not so fun is in the stability and everything with the set. There are certainly some flaws that come about because of the year it was released in, and I find that really unfortunate because this is a set that, like I said, I've wanted since I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I had built it up in my head as like the perfect AT-AT, and it's very much far from that. I must say, having built it and experienced it now, it's just not what I was expecting or hoping for. It's just a lesson for me, I guess, to not idealize a Lego set like this, and I feel like I won't be doing that in the future. Definitely will keep my expectations in check, and this one definitely taught me a lesson in that way. But that doesn't mean it's not like a good display piece. Like, on display, it can look really good from certain angles. Now, from other angles, just externally speaking, it definitely doesn't look so good. You can see the head has some rather large gaps, and that's due to the way that it's built. It doesn't have, like, a rubber band or anything holding this up the way that it should look, and so for that reason it kind of gets stuck down like that, and it looks really awkward. The head also has some very nice weapons and nice part usage with a wrench there on the side for one of the blasters for the AT-AT, and you know, obviously compared to newer AT-ATs, this thing does not have any stud shooters, flick-fire missiles, spring-loaded shooter type things on the build. It's just very much kind of like you would see with a UCS set without any of those play features added on, poking out in that way. Definitely a positive for the set. It's also the only AT-AT to have a printed front face shield. Unfortunately, that was done away with, but that does look really good, and I love the way that it looked. Still to this day, it looks really clean. Up underneath, you can see those cannons and blasters. They don't move or anything. They're very much just stand still, but still very good looking overall for the most part on the exterior of the head. And if you haven't noticed at this point, it is an old gray, so that is not new light bluish gray and dark bluish gray. It's 2003, so they're still using old gray on this set. So if we open up the head of the AT-AT, you can see that everything opens up pretty nicely. So you have very easy and spacious access to the interior. Now the interior will only fit one minifigure though, and you can totally tell it's 2003 because there's so many blue pieces on the inside, but there you go. The AT-AT driver just fits right in on the tile there. So with the AT-AT driver in there, they actually leave a space in the roof of it so that his head does not hit the roof, and it's pretty straightforward. Now there is a big issue with the head, and that is in the connection, like the neck area. The connection between the neck and the body of the set is literally just a Technic rod, and that's about it. So you can see in this clip here from one of my YouTube live streams, the head fell right off when I was just barely shaking the set. So I can definitely see that being a big problem for kids who would obviously play with this at the time. Now, most people buying this set in 2020 and beyond, though, if you're like me, you're going to put this on a shelf, you're going to display it, you're just going to look at it. Like, nobody's buying this as a toy for their kid in 2020. There's much better alternatives, the summer 2020 AT-AT at that, to buy as a playset. This is something that I think most people at this point are buying to display. Taking a look at the legs, they have the typical posability points for an AT-AT with both kind of the knee joint and then the upper leg joint. They use the very strong Technic pieces that we've been using for years and years now. Like, this was the first integration of them on an AT-AT, obviously, because it was the first AT-AT, but they pretty much use the same thing every time since then. And it is because it just works. It works the best. It holds the shape really well so that you don't have to worry about like it crumbling under the weight of the AT-AT. So it definitely is the correct way to do it. And they have some really nice printed pieces on the exterior of that as well for the armor plating detail. I think those look wonderful. It definitely is a unique design compared to what you see in some of the other AT-ATs. The motorized ones still retain these, but the future ones kind of just went all grayed out, and it's just a different look. It definitely is a different look. And you may not like the look of the print, but personally I think it kind of fits in this particular AT-AT pretty well. You may notice this little string here, and that's because that's basically the cable that Luke shoots up into the AT-AT to help himself get pulled up into it and throw the bomb inside. Now, unfortunately, it just is this, and it doesn't include the bomb or whatever. But you can pretty easily have Luke hang on and have him hanging there from the AT-AT and try to, like, you know, break into it from the bottom side. Now, unfortunately, the bottom of the AT-AT does not offer anything as far as, like, Luke to cut into or play around with. Like, it's just very bare bones, brick built, and yeah, it's just like it does what it needs to do, and that's it. It does the bare minimum for a set. And for someone, again, who's going to display it, that doesn't matter, but from the time, I guess it would have been a lack of a play feature. I also have to point out just how weak these particular panels are, and they are on both sides. And the problem with them is that they're only connected by a brick, and they fall off way too easily, like just way too easily. So that is just another major downside to me of this set. You can see they connect up onto those two blue pieces there. Just a major downside to me, that how weak that connection is. So moving up to the larger belly of the beast for the AT-AT, you get to all that great armor plating, of course, and then, of course, you're going to have access to the interior. This thing can lift right up, and future sets would actually combine this piece of plating here with this whole panel, and it actually was a lot stronger, so that was fixed in future iterations, but obviously 2003 was not the best for that. It did have some actually very nice interior aspects, though. The seating from the inside actually did provide a very nice and color accurate to what you saw in the films, or you didn't really see it, but it is the color that the AT-ATs actually are. And this serves actually about 3 different purposes. One, it's a great way to pull it out of where it is in the AT-AT. Just works really great for that. It also creates kind of a partition between the snowtroopers, and you know, that could be pretty neat depending on if you care about something like that. Just kind of a small detail, although not necessarily accurate. But its third and final kind of thing that it does is when it's inside the AT-AT, it basically acts as a buffer that stops this thing from sliding around. So it kind of is multifaceted in that way. It's one piece that to me does 3 things, and I actually really like it for that. But like I said earlier, the lack of minifigures is disturbing. It really does suck on sets like this when you end up with 4 seats, but only 2 snowtroopers to fit within those seats. Anyway, with that small criticism out of the way, you can see the black rails in there. This is just going to slide right onto those very easily, and like I said, this kind of acts as a buffer, kind of goes up against this to stop this thing from sliding all over the place when you have it closed. Now, while the AT-AT is open like this, I think it's a great time to show an example of what is one of the issues with the set, and one of the, you know, it's 2003, the building techniques just weren't there. Basically, you have this layer here where these Technic bricks are, and then below that, it's just tiled. So these 2 layers aren't really connected very well, and you'll see that here because when you pick up the set like this, like the way that anyone would, you're going to pick the set up and you're going to watch how they kind of disconnect there. You see how they aren't really connected? That is a problem. That just is a problem. It's unfortunate. You can definitely feel it when you pick the set up, that it's like you pick it up and then it doesn't really go anywhere, and then you pick it up. And then on top of that, these bend in when you pick it up. So it's not like a solid connection to the base of the set. So it's really unfortunate. A couple of things like that really seem to irk me, that just are not very strong because 2003. Now, the final feature of the set, and one that we hadn't seen since this model until summer 2020's AT-AT is bringing it back, is the speeder bike storage in the rear of the set. You kind of have to open up all these panels, and you flip this one down like so, and just like that, you have access to your speeder bike inside. And it is a pretty nice bike design. I believe it is the same, if not very similar, to the one that you saw in the AT-TE from the same time as well, but you don't really have a seat for your snowtrooper. He actually just stands right here, and you can have him grab onto the handlebars and such. So it's a pretty interesting look for a speeder bike. I think it looks really good. It's really clean looking. It's a little shorter, I feel like, than some other LEGO speeder bikes, of course, just so that it can fit inside the back of that AT-AT. That should be a pretty good view for you of the interior from the backside. And I'm sure some people probably modded this at the time and turned it into a nice play or troop carrier area, because it definitely could be that. But the speeder bike actually is pretty neat to have in there to me, especially because it was a feature that we didn't see for a few iterations of the AT-AT. The AT-AT will always hold a special place in my heart. I unfortunately think that just merely owning and building it now has cemented it in my mind no longer as the best AT-AT LEGO has ever made. It disappoints me to no end that it is that way, but this set has a lot of flaws that are very hard to overlook, and I think I've done a good job highlighting those throughout this video. It looks great for display. I can say that. It looks mostly great for display, bar some of the gaps in the head there, but obviously the newer models will be more detailed, have better pieces, be more accurate in a lot of ways. And while this was a good set for 2003, it's not one that I feel like I should recommend you get in 2020. I was disappointed with this. This is a set that I had idealized for years and years and years, and you may end up in the same boat as me. You may have always thought of this set as one of the best, but I think that this is not one of the best, and it makes me very sad to say that because I've always thought so highly of this one. So kind of unfortunate experience with this set. It just is not something I was really ready for. I've got to go with an overall rating of like 6.5 out of 10. The build just is really abysmal. Like, it is really weak in a lot of areas. I mean, I didn't even mention it, but the panels can come off super easily, and they do come off super easily. Like, things like that just are very unfortunate for a model that had so much potential, so close to perfect, but unfortunately all of those small little building quirks that I was unaware of from just looking at pictures of the set over the years definitely come to fruition in person. Like, there are just things about it when you hold it in your hands that you notice that you can't notice in pictures, and Yeah, it's just something I'm not going to get over. This one makes me real sad to see that this one's not as good as I had thought, but you know, that's part of the experience, I guess. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. If you own this one, let me know if you seem to like it more than I do, because like I said, one that I really liked for a long time, having looked at pictures, but now finally find myself not loving it as much as I thought I would. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.